Welcome to Fantasy Victory Now with Paul Charchian. I'm Mike Durkin, and a lot of changes leads Isaiah Crowell, kind of the top dog in Cleveland. But as we enter the playoff push, is he a guy you can rely on every week?
Yeah, is he an every week starter? He certainly separated himself as Cleveland's lead back, and from a competition standpoint, he's in great shape because Ben Tate's gone, and he's clearly outplayed Terrence West, although West is still getting a lot of use. I think looking ahead at the schedule, he's going to get a starter's grade the rest of the way. He's got Buffalo, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Carolina, Baltimore. Buffalo's tough and Baltimore's tough, but the rest of them are pretty easy. So, I think you're going to be starting Crowell the rest of the season.
If you follow Charch on Twitter, at Paul Charchian, you know this has been the question since Sunday night. In a dynasty or empire format, is there any better receiver than Odell Beckham?
Boy, it's really tricky because Beckham right now looks fantastic. Let's talk about him first. An insane catch radius. He's got speed after the catch. He really looks like a complete receiver. We almost never see this from rookies, especially guys who missed the first third of the season with injury. The only question is Eli good enough to feed him opportunities? Eli's 34. Going forward especially, he hopes to get a new contract. There's some questions there. But who else is in the mix as the best possible dynasty wide receiver? How about Kelvin Benjamin? He's got a decent quarterback in Cam Newton, but we don't know if Benjamin's going to be a career ball dropper. And he might. Mike Evans, he looks like he's going to be an imposing matchup problem for every cornerback every week. But who's his quarterback going to be going forward? I don't even know who his quarterback's going to be throughout this year, let alone next season. Demaryius Thomas, he's only 26 years old. But for him, and he's great, but what happens when Manning retires? Is Brock Osweiler any good? We don't know. It's a big question mark there. How about Dez Bryant? He's only 25 years old, but he's a high mileage 25 years old. He's caught a lot of balls. He's been tackled a lot, and we've already seen some injuries pop up. And what happens when 34-year-old Tony Romo breaks down? Heck, he's already breaking down. There's no quarterback waiting in the wings in Dallas. So, there's a lot of guys that are in that conversation right now. I'm not ready to say Odell Beckham's number one because I think you got to factor in all those guys, but they all have little problems that make it so that you can't necessarily back any of them.
Yeah, and for maybe those Dez Bryant and Demaryius Thomas owners in off-season to consider selling high.
Yeah, you might want to before the quarterbacks go belly up on those teams, yeah.
Last week, Ryan Mathews comes back, posted a big game.
Yeah.
Is it safe to have expectations of Ryan Mathews being productive going forward?
I want to think so. I like Ryan Mathews. He's a good all-purpose back, but there are problems here. Number one, his offensive line is injured and ineffective, and that's, I think, holds him back from being really explosive. Second is his schedule is just plain brutal. He faces the toughest schedule of any remaining runner. He's got one neutral matchup left and 4 deeply negative matchups left. And then they still work in Brandon Oliver, and to some degree, even Brown. So there are enough things working against him that I can't just say that Mathews is going to be an every week starter for your team. No.
A guy that's kind of been in your doghouse all year and something that you're hearing a lot on Twitter. Should I just drop Larry Fitzgerald?
Yeah. If Larry doesn't play this Sunday, and I don't think he's going to on that grade 2 MCL, you're probably not going to want to start him the rest of the year. He doesn't have any favorable matchups left after Atlanta this week. So again, if he plays this week, maybe this week. But after that, Kansas City's a tough matchup. St. Louis has become a tough matchup. Seattle's a tough matchup, and San Francisco's a tough matchup. And frankly, he was a sketchy starter at full strength in favorable matchups this year. Fitzgerald has just 2 touchdowns all season and just 2 100-yard games.
Keep an eye on fantasyvictory.com for Paul Charchian's rankings right up until the Thanksgiving kickoffs and kickoff on Sunday. Don't forget to download the Fantasy Victory app for iTunes and Android and subscribe to us on YouTube.